Today, I thought we could do a little get ready with me. And while I get ready, I thought I could tell everybody a little bit more about myself, kind of the basics, and then also how I got into makeup and what makeup means to me. I wanted to focus on drugstore for this video, so I'm going to be doing a full face of some of my drugstore favorites. I've got a lot of good stuff here. I've got some stuff that's older, I've got some new releases as well, and a couple products that I consider to be hidden gems. I think there's one product in here that I haven't actually tried yet, so we're going to be testing that out live. And then I'll just let you know that I do have on my eyebrows. A lot of YouTubers put their brows on before their videos because they say it takes too long or it's too boring. The reason I have my eyebrows on is because I ripped out this half of my eyebrow while I was completely zoning out listening to music the other day. So I didn't want to be here with an eyebrow and a half the whole time I was doing my makeup. I'm going to start out with the eyes. I always do my eyes first. I'm going to be starting off with the Catrice Eye Foundation Eye Primer. So this is a waterproof matte eyeshadow primer. This is the product that I haven't actually tried yet. So, oh, okay. It has a little doe foot. I did not expect that. Now I have pretty oily eyelids, so that's why I ended up picking this guy up. I picked it up quite a while ago. The eyeshadow primer takes me forever to run through, so I haven't even given it a shot. That feels pretty similar to the Smashbox one that I normally use, so that could be promising. For my eyeshadow palette, I actually don't have that many drugstore eyeshadow palettes. I used to, but I ended up decluttering a lot of them and giving them away to friends and family. I just own way too many eyeshadow palettes to begin with. But one that I kept, actually have two of this palette because I use one in my freelance kit. This is the NYX Swear By It palette. This palette is amazing. The formula is really great and I love the tones that are in here. It's not quite every color of the rainbow, but it's kind of more of a moody color story, like a moody rainbow. I'm actually going to be going for a bit more of a fall toned look today. That's just kind of what I'm feeling, what with the turtleneck and jewel toned hair, so we're going to try that out. Start with the cream shade in the palette. So I'll be using that on a big fluffy brush from Sephora collection. So I just bring that cream shade almost out to the temples, and I can always remove it with a bit of micellar water if I feel like it's going to start dragging my concealer or caking it up. But I usually end up bringing my eyeshadow out quite far to elongate my eyes. Some people might think that looks ridiculous, but I really like it. And then I'm going to take this fluffy Wet n Wild brush. I've had this brush forever, and I'm just going to take the light kind of lilac-y transition shade and just start placing that right in the crease. I usually place it right here, almost diagonal to where my pupil is, and then I start blowing it out. And I do like little circular buffing motions for most of my blending. I find that's what works best on my eyes in order to get me the look I want the quickest, essentially. But on other people, I'll usually place the color here and then start to drag it inwards. And that does give you a bit more of a seamless blend, but I find for my ADHD ass that it's a little harder to keep track of when I'm just doing my own makeup for fun. So I've blown that shade out a bit far, and you can see how pigmented these are, but they blend out pretty easily as well. And then I kind of drag it out here, and I can always clean that up later if I blow it out too far. Then I'm going to take a smaller brush. So I have this smaller brush from Japanesque. It's basically just a tiny little fluffy crease brush. I think I'm going to take that into this raspberry shade very lightly. And again, just placing that not right at the corner, but pretty close to the socket. And then I'm going to dab back and forth between that first color we used and the raspberry shade, and then tap that off. You always want to tap your brush off on your finger as opposed to the compact that you're using, especially if you are a working artist and using your brushes a whole ton on a lot of different people. Nothing hygienic, it's just that the glue loosens in the ferrule if you're whacking it against like plastic or metal constantly. Tapping it against your finger on the handle as opposed to the ferrule is going to help prolong the life of your brushes. So just taking that in gently, keeping it pretty low. I don't want to bring this one up too high. And it's still just that soft wash of color, so then I'll do the same thing on the other eye. So now that we've already talked about the eyeshadow, I think I might start telling you guys a little bit about myself. So my name is Ludo. I did choose that name. I do have another name that was assigned to me at birth that I don't really use anymore. And I am 23. My star sign is Aquarius. And I identify with being an Aquarius quite a bit, actually. I've got that have to be the most special and quirky kind of thing, like down to a T. We've got that raspberry shade down, and it is quite far down my eye, so I'm either going to end up like bringing it around here or completely removing that part and making it more of a wing. I'm going to take another Japanese brush. This one is a little fluffy angled brush, perfect for the outer corner. And I'm going to start taking that raspberry shade down there as well, kind of just stamping it. Anyways, I was about to tell you a story. So I've always had this penchant for makeup. It started when I was little. My great aunt was an artist for MAC in Toronto. And at the time, MAC had the largest assortment of colors that you could get anywhere in terms of makeup, in Canada anyways. They kind of set the standard for that every color of the rainbow eyeshadow range, lipstick range, stuff like that. When I was about 4 or 5, we went to go visit my aunt at the department store kiosk that she worked at, and I saw the big assortment of eyeshadows, that big kind of staircase display of all the rainbow color coordinated eyeshadows. It made my little toddler heart just burst with joy. When I was in kindergarten, my favorite color was rainbow. I painted rainbows all over everything. If I didn't have all the colors, that was fine. I could mix my own. Anyways, when we were at the kiosk and my aunt was helping my mom to pick out some makeup for a new job that she'd gotten, I saw this rich royal purple eyeshadow and I fell in love with it. I can picture it perfectly in my mind, but I'm not sure what the shade was actually called. They have one very similar now called Power to the Purple, and I decided then that my favorite color was going to be purple. It's changed many times since then, but right then and there I was like, purple is the business. Like, why isn't everything purple? Why can't I be purple? I begged my mom to buy that eyeshadow, not even for me. Like, I wasn't going to wear it. I just wanted to look at it, and I kind of wanted my mom to wear it, and, you know, maybe I would swatch it on paper and keep it in my room. But she wanted nothing to do with that purple eyeshadow. As a kid, I would always make her try on the gaudiest stuff when we would go shopping. Like neon pink sequined shirts and stuff like that. And she would humor me, but she was not going to buy this eyeshadow. She ended up buying the shade Saddle, which they still carry. It's a medium warm brown. And we were walking out of the department store to go out to the rest of the mall. And I said, Mommy, like, why didn't you buy that purple eyeshadow? What was wrong with it? And she told me that the point of wearing makeup was that nobody else was supposed to be able to tell that you were wearing it. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure if I actually said this out loud to her, but I definitely thought to myself, like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I mean, as a kid, you haven't been taught what society thinks is undesirable or ugly or unnatural. I just thought everybody was beautiful. I still do. I definitely thought that my mom was beautiful, you know, whether she was wearing makeup or not. I didn't understand that people wanted to fix things about their face with makeup, because the only thing I wanted to fix was that my whole face wasn't covered in purple glitter, essentially. And such began my love of colorful makeup. So now I'm going to take one of my favorite drugstore single eyeshadows. And this is one of those hidden gems that I was talking about. This is the Essence Melted Chrome eyeshadow in the shade Zinc About You. It's this gorgeous taupe with a bit of like a purple and silver reflect to it. And I like to apply that with a bit of a glitter primer. It's a cream eyeshadow, but it almost has that sort of cream to powder finish. Very similar to the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. I'm going to take that on my Morphe M210, which is my favorite brush to apply metallic eyeshadows. Add it onto the glitter primer. Do you see how foiled that is? It's so pretty. I used to do a very similar look to this with the Modern Renaissance palette, and that was actually the look that I wore to my Sephora training. Not my job interview, but my very first like initial onboarding, as they call it. And I take a little blending brush. I have the Morphe M506 here, and I'm going to go back into that raspberry shade and just go over the top of it here. I'm going to start on the face before I do the rest of the eyes. I'm going to take my Annabelle Refreshing Perfecting Primer. I just find this is a pretty good foundation gripping, pore filling primer that almost feels a bit more like a gel moisturizer. And I just put that in the center of my face. I don't bother taking any up onto my forehead. Now I'm going to take the Essence Color Correcting Concealer, just the lightest pink one. This is another hidden gem. Essence has a lot of hidden gems. I mean, they have a lot of duds, but when they've got it right, they've got it right. This is better than the YSL Touche Eclat in my book. It brightens really effectively without looking dry. It's got that like watery gel consistency, and you can wear it on its own too without it looking too stark. And then I'll take my e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This is the most recent one they've put out. They do have a regular camo concealer, which I was going to pick up, but they didn't have my shade at the Walmart when I went to go pick it up. And I'm going to take my Sephora Collection Airbrush 71 to blend that out. Keep having to hold my quarantine bangs back. Sometimes I use a sponge with this, and I might even use a sponge to kind of finish it off, but when I have one of those like eyeshadow wings, I like to use a brush to keep it nice and precise. Probably end up taking a bit of concealer over those blemishes as well. I really like a lot of the launches that e.l.f. has been coming out with lately. I just wish they had more stockists where I live. A lot of places carry e.l.f., but not a lot of the new stuff. If you want some of the newer releases from e.l.f. or any of the skincare or anything, there's basically one Walmart that you can go to. And then I think they've actually started carrying it at the Old Navy. This concealer just has such good coverage, and I find it blends out well with anything you want to use with it. Little goes a long way as well. You can see how it just looks really hydrated and healthy under the eyes. Then for my foundation, this has been a long time favorite of mine. I'm almost through this tube. This is the Covergirl Outlast Active 24-Hour Foundation. It does have a bit of a chemical SPF in it, which I don't mind. I usually double up on the SPF anyway, but this doesn't break me out or anything like that. And it's just the most gorgeous medium coverage foundation. It kind of smells like apples, which is a little weird, like green apples. What I love about this one is that it truly does outlast everything, as the title would suggest. I have pretty oily skin. Almost difficult to find anything at the drugstore that's meant for oily skin that isn't either like matte, full coverage, or like a formula that hasn't been updated since the 90s. This one is like a natural finish, medium coverage, and this mixes really well with other foundations. There's my foundation. I'm looking glowy, but I'm looking a little pasty, so we are going to put on some cheek products. First, I'm going to set everything down with a bit of powder. So for that, I'll be using the e.l.f. Matte Blotting Powder. This is, again, one of the newer e.l.f. products. I picked up this powder when I was in Minnesota last fall. I was visiting some of my very best friends who I met online through the Eurovision fandom. And it was really, really nice to see them, but they probably got annoyed by the fact that I dragged them into every CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens that we passed. And then for blush, we're going to be using this product, which I don't actually think is available anymore. It's from the brand Joe Fresh, which is kind of a grocery store brand that we have here in Canada. But this blush has a really unique tone to it. It's the shade Cedar, if you have it at home. It has this gorgeous, like, neutral plum tone to it that I find to be really flattering. And then with this big, kind of almost fluffy paintbrush looking guy, I'm going to take the Maybelline City Bronzer in the shade 1C. As far as matte bronzers go, this is probably my favorite. We're looking a lot more human now. So my favorite drugstore highlight is from Wet n Wild, and it's actually this loose highlighting powder from their Zodiac collection. I just really work it into my brush in the cap, and then apply it to the top of the cheekbone. Then I'll take a little bit on this eyeshadow brush and just go along my brow bone with it. And the undertone of this highlight almost matches the undertone of the shimmer we have on the lid perfectly. Then I'm going to take the same small brush I used to apply the brow bone highlight, which is the Pro Small Shadow brush from Sephora collection. And I'm going to take that lilac-y shade again, the transition that we used first, and just sweep that on under the eye. I just sweep that and kind of connect it up to that winged spot. I just threw a deep purple pencil in my waterline. And we're going to put some mascara on. I don't actually have a drugstore mascara, but I do have a drugstore lash primer. This is the Voluminous Lash Paradise Primer from L'Oreal. Just this thick, pink, waxy lash primer that makes the lashes really voluminous. It smells like sweet tarts, which I find delightful but weird. I'm just going to line my lips with this Wet n Wild Gel Lip Liner in the shade Bear to Comment. I'm just going to be using the Anastasia Lash Brag Mascara, giving this a shot, see how it goes. Mascara is really nice. I kind of got it everywhere. But I have the Wet n Wild Liquid Catsuit Megaglo Lip Shine lipstick in the shade Cedar later, and we'll see how that goes. It's a little brown, but we'll make it work. So here's the finished look. I've decided against any sort of setting spray just because I'm only going to be wearing this for maybe an hour or two. It is very reminiscent of that look that I wore to my onboarding shift. Anyways, I just want to thank everybody for watching, hanging out, spending some time with me, and I hope we see each other again soon. Bye!